I grew up in a very, I was a Mexicano
Rage
in a
Against the
part of the
Machine was one of the
country
most politically
where I was
influential
the
bands in
exception
the
to the rule
90s.
because most
They were led by lead
Mexicanos
singer Zach De
in
La
Orange
Roca.
County were there
De
because
La
they
Roca
had a
is a Mexican
broom
American who was
or a
born in Long
hammer
Beach,
in their
California
hand,
in
and were picking
1970.
baskets of straw
His parents
bales,
divorced when
you
he was
know.
just 6
So
years
this
old,
is
and he was
there was
forced to mainly live with his
a
mother
deep
due to his
sense
father's nervous
of
breakdown that caused him to force
frustration,
Zach to engage in
alienation I
extreme religious
experienced growing up
practices.
in a very
Zach described
conservative
where he grew
community,
up
very
as one
racist,
of the most
very
racist cities in
conservative
America,
community, and I
as he
think
was
that
subjected to it
that's
in
what
the mainly white
initially
school he attended.
attracted me
He once
to
explained a
punk music
racist
and punk
incident
culture.
involving his
Yeah.
teacher during a Rolling Stone interview. His words on his teacher. He was describing one of the areas between San Diego and Oceanside, and as reference to this particular area of the coastline, he said, "You know the wetback station there." And everyone around me laughed. They thought it was the funniest thing they ever heard. The term wetback is a racial slur used to describe Mexican Americans. De La Roca sat there silent and infuriated at the comment. He decided right then and there he would never be silent again. Not before long, De La Roca formed a band called Inside Out in high school, which performed punk rock music and even released an album. Eventually, his taste drifted to hip-hop, becoming enamored with KRS-One and Run DMC. Not before long, De La Roca ran into guitarist Tom Morello, and together they formed Rage Against the Machine. The band's music and message were so closely intertwined that De La Roca did not consider his album's successes unless they resulted in tangible political change. Indeed, De La Roca will not rock without a mission. That's why I'm in this band, to give space and volume to various struggles throughout the country and the world. The meaning of De La Roca's lyrics are impactful, and the loud with his in-your-face delivery coupled with fiery rock tunes. In the song Know Your Enemy, towards the end of the song, Roca says, compromise, conformity, assimilation, submission, ignorance, hypocrisy, brutality, the elite, all of which are American dreams. Rather than the American dream that we were taught, Roca feels that the values listed above are the true values in the country. Something that is the opposite of the opportunity and freedoms that the American dream is usually defined as. In Voice of the Voiceless, Roca takes up the story of Mumia Abu-Jamal, who many feel was wrongly imprisoned for killing a police officer in Philadelphia. While his guilt or innocence is in dispute, even more in question is the sham of a trial he received, as after just 3 hours of deliberation, he was immediately sentenced to death row. Mumia was known as the voice of the voiceless, speaking out about racial injustices in Philadelphia, especially those committed by the police department. De La Roca says, "You see, the powerful got nervous, because he refused to be their servant," meaning Jamal used what happened to him to expose the racial injustices the Philadelphia Police Department commits. Roca seemed to have become even more overtly political, as well as more articulate, and testify. He addresses the media's role in hate and warmongering and the criminality associated with capitalism. Regarding the media during the Persian Gulf War and other assaults on the Middle East, Roca says, "Mr. Anchor, assure me that Baghdad is burning. Your voice is so soothing, the cunning mantra of killing." His point, the public sees no reason to get involved as foreign adventures, killing, and torture. So you have to whip them up, and to whip them up, you have to frighten them. Roca goes on, "I need you, my witness, to dress this up so bloodless, to numb me and purge me of
Any
thoughts of blaming
society
you."
or any government or any system that is set up solely to profit a wealthy class, uh, while the majority of the people toil and suffer and sell their labor power, uh, so long as that system's only true motive is profit interest and not the maintenance and and betterment of the population to meeting human needs, then that society should not stand. It should be challenged and questioned.
Roca once said, "You know, I think every revolutionary act is an act of love. Every song that I've written, it is because of my desire to use music as a way to empower and rehumanize people who are living in a dehumanizing setting. The song is in order to better the human condition. Based off just a few lyrics from a small sampling of songs, Rocha displays his outward thoughts on war, racism, and what he believes is wrong with the system. Many of the issues he spoke out against still go on today, such as racial profiling and police brutality, war crimes, and greed. Rocha wasn't afraid to let his opinions out, as many are scared to when there is a majority feeling one way. Rocha never sacrificed what he felt was wrong with society. In addition to the band's work, Rocha was an activist in a few ways, such as racial matters like the Mumia Abu-Jamal case, where he testified for him at the UN panel. Rocha also was a strong activist for the Zapatista movement. Guitarist Tom Morello described the Zapatista movement as a guerrilla army who represented the poor indigenous communities in southern Mexico, who for hundreds of years have been trodden upon, and sort of cast aside, and which really are the lowest form of the economic social ladder in Mexico. De La Rocha managed to lead an activist life in addition to his music life. He was never afraid to call out wrongdoings, even if he got backlash from it. Zach and Rage Against the Machine once left their SNL performance, since they had billionaire Steve Forbes on the show, who himself was an embodiment of what the band spoke out against: capitalistic greed. Rocha was able to create a stir and start conversations on the current state of America through his music. Today, his outspokenness can be seen as an example of what starting conversations can do. Society often retreats as a bystander and finds it safer to lie low than actually speak out against what is wrong. This has ties to so many examples today, such as police brutality, drone strikes on innocent families, and the rising gap between the wealthy and the poor. Unfortunately, his message decades ago still resonates in the modern day, but his message still stands strong. Zach De La Rocha and his music served as a beacon for what he believed.